Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of the hour. The Israeli military says Hamas has given the Red Cross remains believed to be of a deceased Israeli hostage as part of the US brokered ceasefire. If confirmed, it would leave 6 hostages' remains still in Gaza after earlier returns of 21 bodies. President Donald Trump says he wants New York to succeed under Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, but warned the Democratic Socialist must be respectful of Washington. Trump, who earlier called Mamdani a communist, says his administration may offer limited help to the city. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered officials to prepare proposals for resuming Russian nuclear tests, warning of reciprocal measures if the US proceeds. The move comes after President Trump directed America to restart testing for the first time since 1992. The US will reduce flight capacity by 10% in 40 major traffic areas from Friday as the government shutdown strains staffing. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy warned of widespread disruptions as the FAA struggles to maintain operations. At least 140 people are dead and 127 missing after Typhoon Kaimeji triggered catastrophic flooding across central Philippines. Officials say the storm is now moving towards Vietnam as rescue teams struggle to reach cut-off areas. The US Supreme Court justices expressed doubt over the legality of President Trump's tariffs, questioning his use of emergency powers to impose them. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says that he remained very optimistic despite sharp skepticism from the bench. Pyongyang has condemned the Trump administration's new sanctions over cybercrimes funding its nuclear program, calling US actions wicked hostility. Washington says North Korean hackers have stolen over $3 billion in digital assets to finance weapons development. Heavy snowstorms and avalanches in Nepal's Himalayas have left at least 9 people dead and 7 Italian climbers missing. The 3 Italians were among the killed when a massive avalanche struck a base camp near Mount Katlangkuri. Now we start this hour in West Asia, and Israel's Prime Minister's office has issued a statement confirming that the remains of another hostage have been received from Gaza. This comes after Hamas's armed wing transferred a body found near Gaza City to the Red Cross. The Prime Minister's office also said that forensic authorities will now work to confirm the identity of the remains. If the remains are confirmed to belong to a hostage, there would still be 6 deceased hostages remaining inside the enclave. The process of returning hostage remains continues despite daily violence. Hamas has turned all 21 living hostages in Gaza in return for nearly 2,000 Palestinian convicts and wartime detainees held in Israel. Israel has continued to intermittently strike the Gaza Strip, though the violence has diminished since the ceasefire began on October the 10th. We are now joined by Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He is a senior strategic and defence expert, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Dr. Kochhar, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to talk to you, as always. Israel has, of course, confirmed receiving the body of another hostage from Gaza. What does this development reveal about the state of the ceasefire, the ongoing mediation, of course, as we creep up to negotiations of that second stage of that US brokered deal by Donald Trump?
Thank you, Thomas. I think this ceasefire is going through a very interesting phase. I feel that since there sporadic violence is still there. I will not call it a ceasefire in the true sense because still we hear that a violation of the ceasefire is taking place. And the precondition, as we were talking, that 100% hostages, living or dead, would be returned, that has actually not happened on ground. There are problems, I think, beyond Hamas also because they may not be having those bodies in their possession as and when they venture into the tunnels in other parts of the tunnel. Maybe they will be able to locate these bodies, but I think Israel would insist on this because this becomes a very strong ground for Israel in case ceasefire violation does take place in a larger manner. The second important aspect is about the humanitarian aid. I think that the process, according to information available, is going on in a measured manner, though not in terms of the requirement which Gaza needs, the number of trucks per day. An estimated figure was being given as around 800 to 1,000 trucks are required per day. So I don't think that is the quantum of humanitarian aid right now reaching Gaza. The next important aspect is that it's still actually early times because within Hamas also there are a number of factions who some of these factions don't actually want a ceasefire. So we see this violations also taking place sporadically, and Israel reacting to this situation. So I think it is a progressive. It's a progressive thing. We can't say that 100% ceasefire has been achieved, but definitely the tempo of operations has come down. No major offensive in terms of missile strikes, rocket strikes, or in terms of armored columns is happening in Gaza. So I think we should take that into a positive frame that the ceasefire is moving towards a long-term solution.
Yes, Major General Kachar. Of course, violence has continued despite the ceasefire being in action. Over 200 Palestinians have been killed, as well as some attacks on Israeli Defense Force troops. Israel's leadership has vowed to continue operations until all the hostages are released. That, of course, includes the remains still in the enclave. Do you see military pressure still being viewed as the only leverage here?
Yes, I think the military pressure is going to be used as a leverage here because without that military pressure, I think this entire ceasefire wouldn't have happened. So I think this military pressure will always be there, and I'm a bit skeptical about the return of the Israeli Defense Forces to its barracks because I still foresee there will be their presence there until an international stabilizing force comes into place. So you are definitely right in your assessment that military pressure is going to work here.
Yes, Major General Kachar, do stay with us as we have further updates. But this time coming out of the United States, where Democratic Socialist leader Zohran Mamdani has won the 2025 election to become the mayor of New York City, with his victory being considered historic, as he will be the first city's Muslim and South Asian mayor and the youngest in over a century. We have reactions. As Republicans face defeat in the polls, US President Donald Trump has targeted Mayor-elect Mamdani, calling him a communist. Trump accused his opponents of trying to turn America into a communist country. However, on the other hand, Mamdani has called himself a social democrat on multiple occasions. President Trump also claimed that Marxists and globalists have delivered a disaster. The criticism comes in response to Mamdani's campaign, which focused on addressing New York's high cost of living, with proposals including a freeze on rent-stabilized units, free bus services, universal childcare, and a $30 minimum wage. This is what the US president had to say on the mayor-elect.
If you want to see what congressional Democrats wish to do to America, just look at the result of yesterday's election in New York, where their party installed a communist as the mayor of the largest city in the nation. But the communists, Marxists, socialists, and globalists had their chance, and they delivered nothing but disaster. And now let's see how a communist does in New York. We're going to see how that works out. And we'll help them. We'll help them. We want New York to be successful. Well,
we're now once again joined by Dr. Kachar. Before that, we have some more information. The president also said that he would like to help Mamdani in running New York, but asked the mayor-elect to be respectful towards Washington. Let's listen into some more statements.
He has to be a little bit respectful of Washington, because if he's not, he doesn't have a chance of succeeding. And I want to make him succeed. I want to make the city succeed. I don't want to make him succeed. I want to make the city succeed, and we'll see.
Dr. Kachar, of course, this is a historic moment, not just for New York, but for America. A democratic socialist leader becoming the first ever Muslim mayor of New York, the richest US city, which in 2023 was responsible for $2.3 trillion of GDP. In the United States, that's over $1 trillion over second place, which is Los Angeles. So Donald Trump, of course, made his name in New York City. He's called the new mayor-elect a communist, and he says he hopes it will work out for New York. How do you think that Donald Trump is, of course, going to balance the mayoral socialist democratic nominee along with this federal funding threats that he has floated towards the new candidate?
A very interesting question, because if I look at the track record of Donald Trump, he has been pressurizing the other states also, like California, who have a democratic elected government there. And he has been enforcing the federal forces onto their law and order apparatus. And he's also been mentioning that these are incompetent people who are not able to handle the law and order situation in their state. So I don't expect, and I think it's a great setback for Trump right now, and he will take time to absorb this loss, because it is a direct indictment of his popularity within the United States. Today it has happened in New York. Tomorrow it can happen in other states also. So what I'm saying is that even an outsider grassroots campaign can succeed in a place like New York, where normally the people want a status quo kind of a thing. So I think the campaign in which Mamdani has come out in terms of rent freezes, free public transport, universal childcare, taxes on the wealthy, mobilizing the younger Gen Z population, I think has played a very important role here. And I think Trump has been rattled, and also he has been rattled by the demeanor in which Mamdani has been speaking about Trump. If you remember his speech yesterday after he has won, he made four major actually announcements. He said, turn the volume up. A New York city of immigrants, powered by immigrants and led by immigrants. So he is challenging Trump's policies of immigration also here. He's trying to send a message to Trump that Trump was enforcing the immigration laws in Mexico, Canada, and all those areas, border areas. He's trying to send a message to Trump that it's not working for you, because immigrants are going to rule
Yes.
America. So I think Trump is going to make it difficult for him because though he's trying to give a political statement right now that we will help the people of New York, but I don't think he will be waiting for one small opportunity. And Mamdani has to be very, very careful in what he speaks also, because he is waiting for Mamdani to make one mistake, and I think that Trump will exploit that. So I think we need to wait and watch what happens here. But certainly, Mamdani has a challenge on his hands.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Major General Kachar, for joining us here on NewsX World. Always a pleasure to speak to you. We have more news coming out of the United States next, and President Trump has defended his sweeping tariff policies, calling a Supreme Court case challenging them one of the most important in the history of our country. Let's take a listen in to his comments.
It would be devastating for our country if we lost that. Devastating. I think it's one of the most important, maybe the most, but one of the most important cases in the history of our country.
The court heard arguments over whether Trump exceeded his authority under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act when he imposed broad tariffs on imports, citing national emergencies. Justices from both conservative and liberal wings expressed skepticism about the administration's claim that the law gives presidents unlimited power to impose tariffs, traditionally a congressional authority. Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Neil Gorsuch questioned whether such a ruling would hand the president unchecked control over trade. The Treasury Secretary has also said that the hearing went very well, but the court's decision could have sweeping implications for Trump's trade agenda, the balance of powers and billions in tariff revenue. This is what the Treasury Secretary has stated.
How do you think the court case went today, the Supreme Court hearing?
I think it went very well. I think the Solicitor General made a very powerful case for the need for the president to have the IEPA powers, and I believe that the other side, in a way, fell flat on their face. But that'll be up to SCOTUS.
What's the plan B if the Supreme Court ultimately rules against the president's?
We're not going to discuss that now. That we were at a tipping point in the economy with these trade deficits. That was a problem. And sometimes the best tariffs are the ones that never get enforced. That the president threatened 100% tariffs after the Chinese on October 8th threatened to put export controls on rare earth magnets from Chinese products that had 0.01%. Every camera, every iPhone here would have been subject to a Chinese control. Because he had the ability to threaten the 100% tariff, he was able to successfully execute on foreign policy.
Now, if the Trump administration loses the Supreme Court case, it may have to refund billions collected from businesses and states that challenged the disputes. Okay, now joining us is Dr. Ajay Dua. He's a former Secretary of Commerce and senior economist, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Dr. Dua, for joining us here on NewsX World. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he's optimistic about this court hearing on tariffs. What is at stake here? Is this about legal authority or the future of Donald Trump's trade strategy?
Good morning to you and to your viewers. I think at stake is the very standing of President Trump. And certainly with that are the policies which he's enunciated ever since he came into his second term last January. I say this from 2 points of view. One, he staked far too much on his powers and responsibilities. Yes, he is the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces. He is responsible for the defense of the country, but every act of the United States is subject of President of the United States, except for a very limited time, that's during an emergency, is subject to approval prior or post of the US Congress. Above the president is the US Congress. And the powers to run the foreign policy, to devise the foreign policy, devise the trade policy, all these things vest in the US Congress, not in the US President. I beg to state it very clearly. If that is so, how is the President of the United States, merely by saying that it is for the defense of the country, security of the country, I am now playing around with the US customs laws? He's gone on unabatedly. First, he said fentanyl poses problems to the security of the US, hence he levied duties in the name of fentanyl on Canada, Mexico, and China. As if that was not enough, thereafter he's now gone around unabatedly, unabashedly, I would say, levying duties on every country of the world virtually, and then using that leverage as an instrument of foreign policy, which he alone says he is charged with the responsibility of devising it and enforcing it. Sorry, go ahead.
It's all right. And Dr. Jura, of course, if Donald Trump does lose this Supreme Court ruling, it's possible that his administration will have to pay back billions for the imposition of these tariffs to companies that have been hit by them. Has anything like this ever happened before? And how hard will that task be if of course, that does happen?
If the court ruling is first saying that whatever President Trump is doing is not as per the American law, constitutional law, he is liable. One, straight away stop the tariff policies which he's enunciated and enforced without the congressional approval. Number two is the question of, will these have validity prospective? That means from the time of the judgment, or is the court going to also state that he never really had the powers? So from the day these were levied, that means retrospectively the decision comes into force. If that be so, then very much the money collected by the US Customs would need to be refunded to those who have paid it. Those might be private entities, those might be state entities. Everybody would be liable to get those back. Whether it's going to be tough for the US or not is, I think the answer is in the latter. It is going to be pretty tough because President Trump's administration has collected vast sums of money, which do run, I think, already beyond a couple of $100 billion, what he's been able to collect since April, because the trade continues and the United States in all has a fairly high trade, as we know, about $2 trillion, even if we say about 1.2 is imports, and the export about 0.8. On 1.2, I think most of the items he would have covered. Gradually, he would need to pay back. That's what I was talking about.
Yes.
The duties are going to be pretty heavy. I don't think that there is any precedent, which I can recall in modern history of contemporary times, where the court has given such a large consequential decision upon the US administration.
Yes, Dr. Jura, do stay with us. We have further news coming out of the United States for our viewers next. The US is set to begin cancelling flights starting on Friday as the government shutdown continues to disrupt staffing across federal agencies. Officials say flight capacity will be cut by 10% in 40 of the nation's busiest air traffic areas. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy told reporters that there is going to be a 10% reduction in capacity at 40 of our locations. Federal Aviation Administration Chief Brian Bedford added that the cuts will focus on high traffic markets, warning travellers to expect delays and potential cancellations. Airlines and passengers are being urged to check schedules and prepare for disruptions as the shutdown shows no immediate signs of ending. Joining us once again is Dr. Ajay Jua. Of course, this government shutdown now, the longest in history, over 35 days this has been going on for. It's now affecting air travel, reportedly cancelled flights, 10% of staff being cut due to the financial implications. What kind of economic ripple is this going to have domestically and globally?
I think the impact would be on both, as you very rightly have sort of referred to, but much more on the domestic economy and the domestic travel. I say this because, one, the United States government had already declared and rightly so, the air traffic control as an essential service. So even if they do not get paid, they were required to come. How long could they have done this? Because in the United States, most jobs you get paid weekly. So a week after week, these gentlemen or ladies were coming to work and not getting paid. Now, formally for the first time, the United States government has announced that it is effecting a reduction by 10% in the staff, which manages the air traffic, and it's a very essential requirement. I totally concede, because from safety point of view, it is a must. So the consequence of it is that those people will not certainly be eligible to be paid if they have been retrenched.
Yes.
So some amount of relief to the US, but it is a very indirect kind of a minute compared to the movement of people, movement of cargo, and the movements of the economy per se in various aspects, which will be affected if air travel is cut. So I would think that trade within the country and trade with external trade, because some of these flights would be carrying goods, etc., for direct to the shipping ports if they are heavy, otherwise directly connecting to other places in the world for the lighter but more valuable goods. All those you would see being impacted. But what concerns me, if I might just say, is that I don't see the seriousness in President Trump of reaching out to the Democrats, the Democrat congressmen, senators, and requesting them to cooperate to find a way out, something which the Democrats seem to be waiting for, saying a meaningful move from the President of the United States, if made to them, they might relent and let the budget go through. But the President seems to be sitting on his high chair and not bothered to see this stalemate end. That's, I think, a pity.
Dr. Ajay Jua, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Now we have a breaking development coming out of Europe, in particular the Russia-Ukraine war, where Ukraine has allegedly targeted Russia's Volgograd region. This has been stated by the regional governor, who has said that the Ukrainian attack caused a fire in an industrial zone. He informed that emergency services have been rushed to the site, who have been working to put out said fire. The governor also said that one person was killed in the attack and several others were injured. The region has faced intense attacks in recent months, targeting critical infrastructure and energy facilities. Of course, we will bring you more on that once we get it. Okay, moving on. And the US ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz, has set conditions for the US's continued support of the UN peacekeeping mission in Abyei, a territory disputed between Sudan and South Sudan. Waltz has said that the US recognizes that Sudan and South Sudan are facing historic and significant internal challenges and instability, But this, according to him, does not absolve the authorities of their responsibility to implement key commitments under the 2011 peace agreement. Let's take a listen in.
We recognize Sudan and South Sudan are facing historic and significant internal challenges and instability. It does not absolve authorities of their responsibility to implement their key commitments under the 2011 peace agreement, to maintain Abyei as a demilitarized zone, to establish temporary administrative and security arrangements, including the joint Abyei police service, and to determine the final status of Abyei. People of Abyei have been waiting 14 years for the establishment of the temporary administrative and security arrangements, including the joint Abyei police service, and a determination of Abyei's final status.
According to Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg, the death toll from the UPS cargo plane crash has now risen to 12. Additionally, U.S. federal safety investigators have now located the black box recorders from the wreckage. The National Transportation Safety Board reported that a large plume of fire erupted around the plane's left wing, and one of its 3 engines detached from the wing as the wide-body jet was rolling down the runway. Debris field from the fire stretched about half a mile through an industrial corridor, including a petroleum recycling facility that was set ablaze and later exploded. The crash and the resulting fires also forced a shutdown of the airport for the night, disrupting operations at the UPS World Port facility, the company's global cargo hub for air shipments, and slowing delivery services. And that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.